Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to all the reasons we are here today. Monishi Sanyal, the founder of IIT Startups and the lead to the founding team of Pan IIT. Everybody give him a round of applause. He's come all the way from California to just be in your presence. Monishi's story is one of excellence and risk-taking, even from an early age. His story, like all of our stories, began in an IIT, which is Madras for him, where he had already become a beacon of excellence. He won several awards, including Governor's Gold Medal, South Asian Sculling Championship, and he's a great pugilist. And he could have been characterized by humility and innate willingness to help those in need. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience who have experienced his support. He then took his skills beyond the world of education, and his talents have shined even more in the professional world. And if you look at his profile, you can see that he's been a CEO, a founder, or some of the lead executive role in different companies. So Monishi has been working as a serial entrepreneur, mentor, and investor since 1980. That plus working with Pan IIT and IIT Startups, he's a busy man. Joking aside, actually it's not a joke, without Monishi ji, none of us would be here today together. The Pan IIT, as you can see, is a kind of, we got a lot of people together from different IITs together and working together, reconnecting and reliving our old college days. It is because of him that we have come together and are showing the world what a unified and powerful force the alumni body of IIT is. And it is because of people like him that IIT continues to be recognized as a global leader in innovation and progress. Esteemed guests, join me in warmly welcoming Monishi ji.
Okay. That was a big drop. Okay, oh, this is the one. Okay, how many of you are doing startups? Raise your hands. How many of you have attended the IIT Startups mentoring sessions? Okay, many more in Silicon Valley though. Anyway, let me first give you the state of the startup ecosystem as we know it today. We are in a very happy situation. India is ranked number 3 after US and China, but it's the fastest growing ecosystem for startups right now, primarily because Prime Minister Modi's massive infusion of funds into the startup market. Currently, the number of startups in India are 100,000. And the good thing is we have a very large population and the demographics are more towards younger people, and we have a very strong educational background in India generally. Now, you know, once upon a time, during my time, you know, if you wanted to do a startup, no girl would marry you. You had to be joining the corporate sector, you know, steady job and all. I know Arjun and I, we were in the same boat at one time. You know, he's my colleague from, well, we're same batch, IIT, different IITs, but we joined DCM together. We all joined corporate those days. But today in India, because of this massive startup fever, you know, your value in the marriage market goes up if you're doing a startup. It's unusual. I mean, like, you know, Arjun invited me to join HCL, where he was the co-founder of HCL. And my father-in-law asked me, are you sure you'll be able to feed my daughter? Now, that's the kind of thing we went through. Now, the IITs, you know, I saw the growing trend. And in 2017, I recovered from an open heart surgery, and my wife told me, that's it, don't do any more business, stop that. So after 2-3 months, when I recovered fully and I had got my energy back, I started studying that what did we do from the time we launched Pan IIT in 2003. I'd introduced lots of people to the VCs who I knew quite well. My network was very vast in Silicon Valley. But when I asked them, what did you think of the IITians we sent to you? They said, technically and from an engineering point of view, the IITian is second to nobody. And mind you, these are Silicon Valley VCs telling me that. But they said, when it comes to the business side, you guys got some weaknesses. So I said, like what? So they kind of outlined, ideation side. When it comes to the mindset, whether the person should make a pivot or not, they kind of are very reluctant to do that. And that happens primarily because the IITian, who we consider to be a hardcore techie in Silicon Valley, is a nerd. If he is an IoT expert, he'll stick to IoT. It doesn't matter what the market needs. There's no concept of a product market mix. A fit, product market fit. Okay, they just make something and in the hope that it will sell. Now, it should be done the other way around. It should actually be done that you will figure out what the needs of the market are before you start building. But the guy says, no, I don't need to build something which is along my capability lines, because if I don't do that, in short order, the VCs are going to throw me out. I'm not needed anymore. So that was one problem we faced. So but in 2018, when we launched IIT Startups, we were number 4 in the world, unicorn builders. It was Stanford, Harvard, Berkeley, IIT. In 2019, we were number 3. It was Stanford, Harvard, IIT. We had overtaken Berkeley, but we were only 4 behind, numbers behind Harvard. And the following year, we had 27 unicorns. So I guess we just rushed past them. We are second today. And now, on occasion, when I get to speak to Professor Steve Blank of Stanford, I say, Professor Blank, do you see something in your rearview mirror? A growing something? I said, that's IIT, we are coming up on you and we're going to take you, So we will be the number 1 unicorn builders in the world before long, So currently, let's say let me just go to the next slide. Now, one of the things I want to say that in terms of our unicorn strength in India, 77% of the unicorns are from IIT, 77%, mind you, with only a base of 3,000 startups. Whereas India has 100,000 startups, that means the remaining 97,000 are producing the remaining 23%. So you imagine the strength that we have as IITians. Now, what's our goal? When we set this up, I had to recruit a large number of mentors. Why would mentors want to come out and give their time? And I said, what? We have a debt to the taxpayers of India for the heavily subsidized education that we got, and I think we should pay back. And something, surprisingly, this message went in deep. It resonated with the with the mentors, and most of our mentors are successful serial entrepreneurs. They made their millions. They don't need to get back into doing this stuff. But, I said, it's not only your donation that counts, but if you train up the next generation, there's a multiplier effect. More people will donate back across. Then our next goal is to form a global cross-border startup bridge. It has not been done so far. The government of India, Startup India, they told me, why don't you have a look at our program called MARG? I said, how many guys have you got it operating on MARG? Oh, they sort of were very skittish about it. The reality is they couldn't get off the ground on that. So Minister Piyush Goyal, who came twice, year before last and last year, he told me that, why don't you meet our secretary? So I went and met the secretary of DPIIT, which is Rajesh Singh, and he said, why do you think we in the government, or rather, why do you think the other other institutions can't do it? I said, what? The glue that binds the IITians is the IIT brand name. We are all very proud of the IIT brand name, And I would definitely reach out to, I mean, if there's a fellow IITian who needs help, I will help him out. Would I want to help out somebody from Guindy Engineering College or some other university? Well, maybe if the plan's a really good one, but otherwise, possibly not. So, loyalty builds on because the secretary told me, why don't you look at it? We are Indians, Indians for India. I said, you know what? IITians are much more focused to helping each other out. If I go to IIT Madras, they'll help a fellow IIT Madras guy out, then help a IIT Bombay guy out. And then if you go to our mechanical engineering department or Ganga hostel, they'll want to help their linguistics. So, the narrower the bandwidth, the deeper the deeper the loyalty. So this is something I just said, you've got to understand that this is the way things work. People generally in India, the first loyalty goes to the family. Then all else. I mean, nationalism comes after family. So our goal is to help India become the #1 startup destination in the world and make IITs the #1 unicorn builders in the world. Now, the other thing that has happened over the years is with the brand building exercise that we've had, there's been a tremendous infusion of foreign direct investment, that's FDI, and a lot of technology collaborations. This would take me back to how we got there. We launched PAN IIT in 2003. Today, that organization has over 500,000 members. Okay, so it's a formidable force. And at that time, we had a program by 60 minutes. I hope all of you had a chance to see that 60 minutes program. But suddenly that changed the image of IITians and Indians at large, that, these guys are not just cheap programmers, but these guys are entrepreneurs, and Vinod Khosla, who was one of the people who was interviewed, he said, we have generated a large number of jobs in hundreds of thousands for the American public in America. And that got everybody quite stunned, In fact, I know two of our IIT Madras guys who, after a successful exit when they sold Jungli, they became VCs. So they went to the California pension fund to collect money. And those fellows, they said, we are from Harvard, we are from Stanford, California pension asked him, where did you get educated in India? So the guy said, IIT. So, you were in IIT. We saw the 60 minutes program. We got blown away by what you guys go through, So, I'm just saying that that 60 minutes program was a major impact on creating our brand value. Our keynote speaker at the launch event was Bill Gates, who then was #1. I mean, like what Elon Musk might be today. He was there, #1, for a while. Then in 2005, US Congress passed Resolution 227 acknowledging IITians for their contribution to the US economy. That was really done by the PAN IIT Washington chapter led by Suresh Shenoy. He's not here, is he? No. Okay. Well, he got that done. But, all these things enhanced the image of the IITians. In fact, I'm surprised that the government people have seen the 60 minutes program, but they didn't see this Resolution 227. So this time when we showed it to the minister, I sent it to the Consul General. When he spoke to us on 14th of November, half his speech was about IIT, and so the other Thai guys and other college guys said, what the heck, he's only talking about IIT, So, well, anyway, I mean, that Arjun was there, I was there, so it was a kind of sweetener. At the end of it, he said, so are you going to do something? I said, yeah, I kind of produced a white paper for your secretary, Rajesh Singh. I gave it to him in July. 5 months have elapsed. I haven't heard back from him. So I said that you need to react to that. And I basically said that, look, if Rajesh Singh expects me, where I can't even handle 3,000 IIT startups, if he expects me to address 100,000, I'll have to change my name from like his name, or I'll have to change my name to Kolab Singh. Well, he's Rajesh Singh. So anyway, net is, we've given them a white paper about how our desperate problem in India is how to scale the mentor pool. The way, okay, I'll tell you how our training goes. So anyway, these were the surge years between 2017 and 3 and 17, but we saw some of the slippages, which I just told you about. Okay, we launched IIT Startups in Silicon Valley in 2018. Okay, now this is a volunteer-driven, non-profit organization which primary goal is to help IITians and the IITs. This is the goal for both the organizations. In India, we launched in 2021 as a Section 8 non-profit company. On starting day in the US, we had 200 startups that came for the inauguration event. Now fortunately, Silicon Valley has had a long history of startups, so in very short order, I was able to rope in 70 mentors. At that time, our numbers in Silicon Valley was 14,000. Today, we have upward of 15,000 IITs in that small area in Silicon Valley. Now in India, now this US launch to me was like a tidal wave, I mean, I said, let's hope we can cope with it. But when we launched India, and our funnel size was 3,000 startups, I said, this is a tsunami, baby. I mean, like, it's impossible to handle that kind of a number. But anyway, basically we decided that we will handle them in smaller sections. We don't have to address them all. And we want to be the Y Combinators of the non-profit sector. However, Y Combinators is now having slippages because they've gone into the volume game. Earlier, if you came through Y Combinators, any VC would fund you, no questions asked. Today, they're beginning to look at these things. You know what? Because they're playing the volume game, some not so great startups are being pushed. And we don't want to get into that trap. So we're still trying to figure this. It's a problem on our hands, and we are still trying to figure out how to get around it. And again, another big difference between Silicon Valley and India is most of the Indian startups are in digital commerce. Most of the startups in Silicon Valley are in deep tech. So I told Saurav, who's the chairman of our Indian IIT Startups, that, this doesn't look right, this is, those are not really startups, they're service companies, sort of. So Arjun Malhotra is who's the chairman of IIT Startups in the US, that's him over there. When you stand up and show them, handsome guy, look at him, yeah. Okay, so he's the chairman in the US, and Saurav Srivastava, who was the co-founder of NASSCOM, is the chairman in India. They are legally two separate bodies, but globally we work on the same goals that we have. So they said, he caught me on the wrong foot. He said, isn't your goal to have the maximum number of unicorns? I said, yeah. He said, the fastest way you can get unicorns is by going the digital commerce route. So sure enough, that's what's happening in India. They're churning out unicorns, but now reverse traffic has also started. Many of the unicorns are becoming ununicorned, So that fallout is taking place. Okay, there's a bit of a rush, but in the process, this is okay. So the kind of services we offer, one is workshops. Now workshops are all video recorded. They are on our website, which is IITStartups.org. Okay, IITStartups.org. If you go to the library section, you can play all the workshops at your leisure. Each video is about 1.5 hours. And sit back and see what the experts say about each aspect of a startup journey. So you get the gist of what's going on over there. The next part, which I initially started doing, and then I found, not too many guys needed it because they were asking their friends what to do, is counseling them to find out whether they have the right ingredients to do a startup. What's the fellow's attitude? Is he a go-getter? Is he passionate? Is he flexible? It's a very important thing, flexible. If the guy is not flexible, you know what, as a mentor, you're going to be challenged. You give the guy a guidance, you need to make a pivot. The guy says, no. here we come to that very delicate balance: is the person persistent or is he stubborn? You like persistent people, but you don't like stubborn people. Stubborn people is you're stuck to an idea regardless of what the outcome is going to be. Second thing is aptitude, whether he's got the right ingredients to do a startup, whether it's a technical skill or whether he's amenable to build a team where he can complement his strengths with other strengths that he requires for doing a startup by bringing in other co-founders and partners. He's got to be, that aptitude and the attitude to accept that must be there. And the third thing is altitude. How far do you want to go? You want to be a unicorn? There's a price to pay. Are you sure what's your family life like? Are you married? Is your wife earning? Do you have enough backup reserve of this thing, money? How many years can you go? Do you have children going to college? Startups' mental agony for 2 years is enormous, and the mental agony is offset by the thrills of the chase. Okay, so not everybody is cut out for it. Many guys drop out, and of course now there's a lot of self-help because our system has got fairly mature. They talk to each other and figure out. Then we have a mentoring program. Now, each cohort is selected where a startup is given a dedicated mentor, ideally with a good fit for his needs against the mentor's capabilities. Okay, and that is where the bottleneck lies because of the fact that we are trying to. Can I have some water from my bag? It's there. Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to have a drink. So, where was I? Yeah, so in the mentoring part, our funnel sizes reduces sharply, and on demo day, we prefer not to put up more than 12 to 15 startups, because think of it, in a demo day where we call more than 100 investors, the investor's patience, he hears these elevator pitches. By the way, all of you can go to our website and you can see all the pitches which are made, the 4-minute elevator pitch. We give a structure to it so that in a particular style that presentation is made. And you can, investors get tired, and when 12 to 14 startups present, 1 hour is gone, and by the time the last guy comes, the investor is half asleep, So you don't want, that's kind of unfair to the guys who come at the end. It is better to stagger out and do a separate demo day, but not subject the trailing guys to a difficult acceptance situation. Okay, the fourth item is a knowledge forum, which is basically, it's in a concept stage right now. I think, if you have ever used a camera, I know once I was trying to fit a Sigma lens on a Nikon camera, and I called up Nikon, and after waiting 45 minutes on the line, that guy says, but that's a Sigma lens you have to connect, so I can't help you. Now, I went to a camera website called DP Review. I positioned my problem there. Within 5 minutes, I got 10 answers. People have experienced that. So, sharing knowledge forum is a great way. A startup can ask a question. It needn't be answered by a mentor. It could be answered by a fellow startup. You say, hey, you know what? I had exactly the same problem. This is what you do. So you can get a lot of answers and a lot of variety of answers. In other words, the answer can come from different directions. The guy says, in my case, this is what happened. Somebody else says, oh, in my case, something else happened. And everybody gets to see that. Okay, the other big benefit that we provide to our startups is connectivity. We have a demo day. You're instantly introduced to 100 investors or more. Then marketing B2B. In Silicon Valley, we have over 15,000 IITians today, and many of the people are there in CXO positions. So if I send a startup he says, you know what, I want to do a pilot in Cisco. Now, through our connectivity that we have, I can reach out to that person and say, you know what, there's this young startup from IIT. Immediately the loyalty bells ring and says, he would like to meet you, seek your advice, and if you could help him with a pilot project, pilot means free, then, you'd be doing us a great service. And IITians respond to that. They not only respond, I know people who have acquired these companies. So that is another major benefit. The third thing is ISVs. Now, 90% of our startups are acquired. Only 10% go the IPO route. Because IPO is a very, very difficult journey, and unless you're a seasoned entrepreneur, it's not a line you want to take a shot at, So because of that, we've called in companies like the Citrix and Oracles and Cisco's, who, when you call their venture arm, they give us an idea of the kind of companies they have acquired and why they acquired them. And that gives an idea. It's not guaranteed that the same thing will be valid a year or two downstream, but it gives an idea that at that moment, this is the trend of the industry. They're going this way or that way or whatever. Now AI is the big buzz, then ChatGPT is going to be the next hot big word. I mean, there are waves of excitement in the market about different aspects of what is required. So, we used to have this before pre-COVID days. We used to do this every few months, where we would invite these corporations who are likely acquirers of startups and ask them to make a pitch. The next thing is system integrators. System integrators, companies like HCL, Infosys, Tata's, Tech Mahindra, these people, if they've got 100,000 consultants, typically about 10% are sitting on the bench. Would that be right, Arjun? Yeah. 10% is 10,000 people sitting on the bench. Now, not all 10,000 have the capability that you or your startups are looking for, but to the extent that they fit, we try to sell the idea to the system integrator. Why don't you help our startups out by using your bench strength where there's a fit? Okay, and do it for stock, because the startups don't get funding that easily. Do it for stock, and heck, if your startup becomes the next Google, you made a killing. And if you're not, your bench is anyway a sunk cost. I mean, it's something you're paying for regardless of whether this thing. Of course, there is one danger, that the moment they get a hot project for that startup, for that consultant, they may pull him away. I mean, we just tell them, you can't risk that, because the startup will have, because then after that, we will be very cagey to take any people from you. And finally, we are building this global bridge, which we've already started 2 cohorts ago, where Indian startups are attending the US mentoring program, and US startups are attending the Indian mentoring program, because the ecosystem is different. The mindset of the venture capitalists or the investors is also quite different. So, and today products are getting very, very globalized. So from US to India, US startups want to set up an offshore development center. It's common because you have your low-cost production based in India. The US startups are wanting to address the Indian market. The Indian market is a very, very fast-growing market. So many of the US startups want to address that market. And it also helps promoting the Indian startup ecosystem with the corporates, like corporates and investors, where we tell them, we are cross-border, we are a cross-border operation, we can help out, we got a team here in Silicon Valley, we got a team there in Bangalore, and we can help out in both directions. Then from India to the US, many Indian startups want to address the US market. Now, there's a catch here, that most investors here would want one co-founder to be based in the US. And we help, our team helps them find fellow IITians who might be wanting to undertake that journey in the US. So to that extent, they have a partner in the US, and they have to see whether their body chemistry, I can give them 5 names, but they have to see whether their chemistry matches. Not every 2 guys will get along with each other. Now, that is the conclusion of my talk. This, by the way, was a talk I gave to a bunch of Japanese guys who came through Nomura Securities, and this event was held in Stanford Research Institute. So they wanted to know something about the Indian market. This is not our data, this is data that was provided to me by Invest India. So I told them, hey, this is the benefits of India, so you can go that. So that is the sort of conclusion of my talk. So now, Rajit, you can take the questions. Huh? Oh, by the way, we have cohort 11 starting now, anytime in the next month. Please look at www.iitstartups.org. Okay, IITStartups.org. How are you doing for time?
We've got 10 minutes, also about 3 questions.
Okay, and you've got those 2. Yeah, okay.
Monishi, the question is, what is the cross-section of the investors that come for the demo day, and what kinds of, how large are these investments?
So, investors come in various forms and shape. There are early stage investors, there are Series A kind of investors, there are guys who are advanced investors. That's one. Number 2 is some investors pick certain lines. Some are interested in healthcare, some are interested in agri-tech, whatever they have. So, a wide variety of that. And if you go to our website, look at the portfolio companies, you can pick the kind of company you want to have a look at. So they can choose and they'll decide that, hey, this cohort is going to be useful for me, or it's not going to be useful for me. That's it. Huh? Yeah, mentors also, they also look into that. Yeah.
Thank you, Monishi. One quick question would be on one word you mentioned that resonated, which is fallout. Can you talk about the rise of private market derivatives, specifically forward contracts and 00 SPVs?
Slowly. A little slowly.
A little slower? Okay. So one word that resonated was fallout that you mentioned that's currently impacting the VC community. So I wanted to just talk about or just hear about your thoughts around the rise of private market derivative securities in the startups. So specifically, forward contracts, 00 SPVs, as shareholders clamor for liquidity given the IPO window remaining shuttered.
I didn't really get your question, but I'll tell you one thing. Private equity doesn't find this market attractive. Private equity goes for advanced running companies. They do not go for startups.
Yeah, no, not like...
Arjun, correct me if I'm wrong over there. Private equity is much more for the running companies, making lots of money, growth funding and all that sort of thing. Arjun, do you have any comments?
No, I think the point here is that when companies go down in value and shareholders have been there for a long time, they clamor to get their funds back, and there's some new instruments coming out, but we don't play in that market at all.
Okay.
Yeah, not for like private equity firms doing like EBITDA roll-ups or like buying for free cash flow. I'm talking about like, let's say early stage investors, angel investors who want DPI for the next fundraise.
Yeah.
So if there's no IPO, they can't return capital, so they're stuck.
Yeah, as of now, we are
supply.
dealing with angels and early stage investors.
Right.
We are dealing with startups who are early stage and up to pre-series A. Now, the advanced startups are also now coming to us, not that they require the training, they do not require the mentoring, but you know what? They suddenly see we've got massive connection base in the investor community. They say, hey, I know these 3 VCs very well, but you seem to know a lot more than us. Can you introduce us to those guys? He said, yes, but you got to go through a program, but their programs are much more shortened. Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
So the 2 questions, right? The merger and acquisition, please. The merger and acquisition.
Okay. What about mergers and acquisitions?
So basically there are 2 questions, right? The merger and acquisition, how does it play into the IIT startups?
Okay, mergers and acquisitions, as far as startups are concerned, it's always an acquisition. The word merger, even for large corporations, like just recently HP acquired Juniper, it's an acquisition. Sometimes they say 2 large companies merge, and I think that's a complete I don't think that's true. I don't think there is a thing called merger, because invariably when two companies merge, supposed to be equal, in course of time, one entity will begin to dominate. And when that entity begins to dominate, it becomes an acquisition. I mean, the closest thing that you can think of in merger is the marriage between two people. Okay, now 51 years ago, when I got married to my wife, it was meant to be a merger. But before the honeymoon was over, I knew the honeymoon was over because I had been acquired. Now, Arjun may not agree because my wife's a very quiet, reserved person, but at the end of the day, I'm a very loud guy. But at the end of the day, very often I want to say, you know what? She didn't say much, but she got her way. All the way. She's kind of, I almost feel I'm being maneuvered into whatever she wants me to do. Okay.
So just a quick question on one of the comments you made. You said 90% of the exits are buyouts, basically companies buying out these startups. If you look at US as an example, the big bucks by the entrepreneurs were made through the IPOs after decades of that harvesting in the IPO market. So what do you think it'll take for the Indian startup industry, particularly the IIT channel, to get to the stage where they're actually IPOing more so, or actually equally, or in a bigger fashion?
Look, our IITians do go for IPO, but they are not the first time startups. They are guys who've done it multiple times. They know the game inside out, okay? And then they say, you know what? Because when you do an IPO, it's a feather in your cap. I did an IPO. So it's a big thing. So they want to do that as one last shot. Let's do an IPO, before I retire. So it comes at a much later point in time. We are not handling those kind of startups just yet. Yeah.
Early startups
Huh.
still have a few years to go before they get to IPO.
Yeah.
Normally 8, 10, 12 years. We haven't got that lifespan as yet. So there are some companies that may be on that path, but they haven't done it.
So I had a question about SPACs. Like, what's your take on the SPACs? And
About?
SPACs, like a lot of startups go the SPAC public. What's your take on that?
Like a Pahalapitiya guy.
Yeah.
Chamath. No, that's out of our realm for the moment. Those are special vehicles that they design, and it's not in our ambit just yet. We are just doing simple, step by step, baby steps, taking the guys up. Yeah.
Thank you. I think.
Huh? You had that last one? That last one, Pan IIT thing. Huh? Okay, time's up, guys, so we're going to stop here. If you have any questions, you can post it on, you can send it to me on Monishi at IITStartups.org. MONISHI at IITStartups.org. Okay?
Thank you, Monishi.
Okay, you're welcome.